Hello.
Hello.
I'm Anita, and this is Andrew, and our practice is Panov Scott. And the project we're presenting today is one that we love. It's called Kindred, and it's as much about a family as it is about an architecture. So we'll just grab our slides. Here we go. So within Greater Melbourne, only 1/3 of households currently assume what we might consider a traditional form. And this trend is increasing year on year. Yet the suburban house within middle and outer ring Australian suburbs remains almost invariably a large, freestanding 3 or 4 bedroom home. And alongside this kind of diversity, we must also remember that the size and shape of our households over time is not static. Ironically, to account for all that changeability, we find homes which are built to be generic, homes which barely suit anyone, which comes at great economic, environmental, and social cost. So in one direction, this project is about suburban infill transformation to enable intensified use and diversity of housing. And in the other direction, it's also about the making of a place for 3 generations of the same family to live a rich and rewarding life. When we came to the project, our clients had already tested the option to build a project duplex home and had concluded that they would be doing a disservice to the family to live in such a banal living environment. They were also acutely aware that their needs would continue to change over time, and so the house required a degree of flexibility in order to retain its purpose. That aspiration was steadied through all stages of the design process by a limited budget, but also a shared desire towards value. Kindred now allows the families to live independently and interdependently. It offers comfort and moments of generosity, but eschews excess. The house is formed around a series of gardens. It recognises that the outward gaze from the bungalow becomes somewhat obsolete in a suburban context and instead adopts the form of the courtyard house. To briefly describe the arrangement of the home, there's a single entrance from the street to the front garden. The family home is entered from the left and reaches to the rear of the site with single-storey, north-facing living areas. And it also occupies the second storey at the front for sleeping spaces. While a path leads through the front garden to the right, to the older parents' entrance, from which they occupy the ground floor at the front of the house. And there is also tempered interior access between. Both houses orient towards the shared garden at the centre of the site, which is anchored by a large ash tree. The appearance of the building is defined in large part by the 4-fold repetition of an identical window element, with all other facade articulation carefully detailed to recede into the homogeneous ground of the vertical black cladding. The brass glazing beads around these windows being perhaps the single profligate flourish of the project. There are a number of design methods that we utilised in order to realise the project with regard to value. One of these was the minimisation of internal space and the use instead of external rooms. The design for car storage is one such example. Though council required 2 spaces, our clients have just 1 car and prefer to park this on the street. The design of the car storage therefore evolved to externalise the decorum of entrance. So we established a place for shoes and to sit. The 3 small stairs and small landing bring an intimate scale of entry within the larger room. And it's also a place for tinkering, supported by the adjacent workshop. To signify entrance, light spills through the upper level and illuminates the threshold between inside and out.
Thank you. A further design method to enable rooms to find more generous boundaries is the thickening of thresholds, which is most evident in the narrow verandas that skirt the compact living spaces of the house. Next. Kindred has been made using simple, off-the-shelf materials. The interiors rely on carpentry methods as opposed to bespoke joinery. They also rely on paint. And these assemblies form a backdrop to our client's eclectic collection of objects and artworks. In adopting the site strategy of reaching out along the length of the block, the family can enjoy north-facing living spaces protected by the verandas. This image is shot in midsummer. You can imagine the ash is now beginning to turn. This is a while ago. And in a couple of months again, so probably now, the same image would be made with the interiors bathed with winter light. If the entrance is the first external room you encounter in the procession of the house, the last is this one, the afternoon garden room. With a similar proportion to the adjacent internal living spaces, the veranda transforms here to the scale of a room, which frames the western end of the courtyard. In other parts of the project, the thickened thresholds manifest internal to the building via a window seat, desk nooks, or storage. If we can return to the front of the dwelling, the scenic quality of individual houses within a suburban neighbourhood is established primarily by the front facade and the garden setting. Within this physical and cultural context, the establishment of the facade of the project might be seen as a kind of aesthetic provocation. But the facade articulation is not simply intended to be disruptive within the street. Rather, it seeks to establish an aesthetic of adaptability, one that aligns with the fundamental objectives of the project. At this moment in time, 3 bedrooms are found behind the 4 windows. But a wall slides so that within minutes, there might be only 2 bedrooms behind the 4 windows. Or in the other direction, the large bedroom might be bifurcated to enable the neat alignment of 4 rooms behind 4 windows. Although a single dwelling, Kindred is currently occupied as 2 homes. With further sliding panels downstairs, that configuration might momentarily transform again. And of course, the windows allow, with the benefit of the racecourse directly opposite, for the daily life of the house to begin to engage with their greater environment. And so to conclude, we return to the afternoon garden room and contemplate Kindred's usefulness as a model for the remaking of our suburbs, in the making of homes which reflect the diversity within our society and our collective desire for connectedness. Thank you.
This is a small image of Phoenix by John Wardle and Durback Block Jaggers Architects. We saw it only the other day and frankly, it just blew us away. Is it an interior or exterior? Is it big or small? What is the scale? Is it ancient, like some kind of mashup of the traditional squinch? Or is it that moment when a wave hovers and arches over our heads before becoming immersed in the sea? Our conclusion is that it is all of these things and many more. The building is a collaboration of architects who are at the peak of their careers. Behind the building is a visionary client. The result is architectural excellence.